A very tall son named Barron. Has anyone ever heard of him?
Try not to gag when you see Barron's girlfriend. At 6'8", Barron Trump towers over everyone, but that's not what made the internet lose their minds. In October 2024, photos surfaced of him with a mystery woman. People said she was a Czech model. Others claimed she was royalty. Then his father dropped a bombshell. I don't think he's had a girlfriend yet. So who was the woman? Why did major outlets run the story? And why did every photo of her suddenly disappear? The truth about Barron's love life is stranger than anyone imagined. It all started with a shock. Just 6 months after their over-the-top Palm Beach wedding, Melania told Donald Trump she was pregnant. It was August 2005. He had just walked through the door when she broke the news. His reaction? Total surprise. Not because he didn't want children, he did, but because it happened so fast. He later said he always expected kids with Melania, just not this soon. At 59, Donald already had 4 children. Donald Jr. was 28, Ivanka was 24, Eric was 22, and Tiffany was 12. With Barron's arrival, the age gaps between siblings would stretch from 13 to nearly 30 years. In many ways, Barron would grow up like an only child. Then came the name, Barron. It wasn't picked at random. For decades, Trump used John Barron as a fake name when talking to the media. He used it to hype himself up, dodge scandals, and even lie about his net worth. Reporters joked that calls from Barron were so frequent, it became an inside joke. In 1990, he finally admitted under oath that yes, on occasion, he used the name. So when he named his son Barron, it wasn't just a name, it was a legacy, a tribute to the alter ego he created to sound richer, tougher, and more powerful. Now, that persona was no longer fictional. It had become family. Barron William Trump was born on March 20th, 2006. At 5 a.m., he weighed 8 pounds, 7 ounces, and within 20 minutes, Donald was already on TV announcing the news. "I produce children. I stay young," he bragged. He wasn't even in the delivery room. He had said it would be easier on Melania if he stayed out, so Melania had to go through her first childbirth alone. Still, Donald made sure the cameras knew. The baby was beautiful. So was the mother. And just like that, Barron entered the world. Part baby, part press release. But Barron wasn't just born into wealth. He was born into a bubble. His early years were spent inside the Trump Tower penthouse, nearly 11,000 square feet over 3 floors. And one of those floors was his alone. A private kitchen, a private living room, even private nanny quarters. It wasn't a nursery. It was a child-sized luxury apartment. Gifts rolled in like royal tributes. Ellen DeGeneres gave him a gold baby carriage with a crystal chandelier. Barbara Walters sent a stuffed dog. Gayle King added a big green frog. By age 4, Barron was riding around in a toy Mercedes with his name on the plate. Outside his window, Central Park stretched below. And down the elevator, his father's office. His cultural world was just as unusual. Melania, born in Slovenia, made sure Barron spoke her native language. By age 4, he had a clear Slovenian accent. On Larry King Live, even the host noticed. "He has an accent," Larry said. Melania nodded. "He mostly spends his time with me." By then, Barron was already fluent in 3 languages. Donald called him the smart one. He wasn't just rich, he was international. Raised in a penthouse, speaking in 3 tongues, and surrounded by a team of adults, he was a child apart. Melania didn't just watch over him. She managed every detail. She called him Mini Donald, not just for looks, but for attitude. She dressed him up in suits. She said he didn't wear sweatpants. He liked ties. He liked being like Dad. She insisted he finish the school year at Columbia Grammar in Manhattan before moving to the White House, even though it meant millions in extra security. She didn't want to disrupt his world, and she shaped that world carefully. She made the rules. She picked the teachers. She chose the friends. Her son would be perfect. Her son would be presidential. Barron began to echo his father in ways that felt almost eerie. At age 5, he was swinging golf clubs and talking about building things. Melania said he liked to build. Knock it down, then build again. It sounded exactly like Donald. Even his speech patterns matched. On election night in 2024, When Barron spoke publicly, people were stunned. He sounded just like his dad. He even used the same phrases. "It's very nice," he said over and over. The voice, the confidence, the style, it was all there. One story stood out. During a dinner at Mar-a-Lago, Barron made a joke, or maybe not. Someone mentioned a silver spoon. Barron replied, "Who would ever eat food with a silver spoon? Mine was gold." He wasn't being sarcastic. He was serious. That was his normal. School was just as exclusive. Barron went to Columbia Grammar, one of New York's most elite private schools. Tuition was over $40,000 a year. But it wasn't just about the classes. It was about the company. Kids of billionaires, celebrities, and future power players. And in 2017, Barron did something no other 11-year-old could. He arranged a full-class trip to the White House. Around 80 students traveled with Secret Service escort, stayed in Washington hotels, and got a personal tour. They met the president, his dad. They ate lunch in the White House, and they listened to a speech about reaching their potential. It was a memory no one else could create. But for Barron, it was just part of being himself. And then there's the twist no one sees coming. Barron became an uncle while he was still a baby. His niece Kai was born in May 2007, just over a year after him. Technically, he was her uncle, but in reality, they were peers. Today, Barron is 18, Kai is 17. They're almost the same age, and yet she's his niece. That's what happens when your siblings are 13 to 29 years older than you. You're the baby and the uncle. It's a family tree that loops in on itself. When Donald Trump became president in January 2017, most people assumed his family would move into the White House right away. But Melania and Barron Trump didn't. They stayed in New York City for nearly 5 months. The reason? So Barron could finish his school year at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School in Manhattan. On paper, it sounded like a simple, personal decision, but in reality, it sparked a massive wave of criticism and came with an unbelievable price tag. From January 20th to June 11th, 2017, Melania and Barron remained at Trump Tower. The daily cost for NYPD to protect them was estimated between $127,000 and $146,000, and that was just local law enforcement. The Secret Service asked for an additional $60 million in funding just to keep the family safe. People were furious. Over 500,000 signed a petition demanding Melania move to the White House or pay for her own security. They argued taxpayers were being forced to foot the bill for a personal choice that brought no benefit to the country. In those few months alone, Melania's travel expenses exceeded $700,000. That was nearly twice what Michelle Obama spent in an entire year. The backlash was so strong that it became one of the first major controversies of Trump's presidency. When Barron finally enrolled at a new school in Maryland, it caused another stir. He didn't go to Sidwell Friends School, the one that had educated every president's child since 1986. Instead, he joined St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Potomac. It was a big break from tradition. St. Andrew's had never hosted a presidential child before. The school was about 20 miles from the White House and had just 580 students. The class sizes were small, and the student-to-teacher ratio was an impressive 7-to-1. The tuition? $38,890 per year. Melania praised the school's diverse community and academic excellence, but the shift created major logistical problems. Secret Service had to overhaul the school's daily operations to keep Barron safe. The White House tried to keep the news quiet to avoid protests, but rumors spread. They had to announce it in May, months before they had planned. On June 11, 2017, Barron moved into the White House. That moment made history. He was the first presidential son to live there since John F. Kennedy Jr. in 1963, a full 54 years earlier. At just 11 years old, he joined a long line of presidential daughters who had lived at the White House, but very few sons. The last boy that young to live there was Charles Taft II, back in 1908. Barron's presence brought something new to the White House, something that hadn't been seen in decades. His stay lasted until January 2021. By then, he had grown incredibly tall, standing 6 feet 7 inches by college age. He often towered over everyone during public events, making him impossible to miss. Even at a young age, Barron was expected to take part in major White House events. One of his biggest appearances was the Easter egg roll in April 2017. More than 21,000 people attended. Barron stood on the Truman balcony with his parents, and blew the whistle to start the event. Cameras caught him signing cards for military members and mingling with guests. During the Thanksgiving turkey pardon, he stood next to his father as turkeys named Drumstick and Wishbone were spared. At Christmas, he appeared with Melania as a horse-drawn wagon delivered a massive 19-foot Fraser fir tree. A military band played, and cameras followed every moment. Despite the pressure, Barron kept calm, dressed in a dark suit and white shirt. He rarely appeared in public, so these moments stood out. But what really got people talking was his height. By the time he turned 18, Barron stood between 6'7" and 6'9". That's taller than his 6'3" father and his 5'11" mother. Some even said he was still growing. His height placed him in the same range as NBA stars like LeBron James. At one point, he was photographed at his grandmother's funeral, towering over the entire family. The pictures went viral. People were stunned. Donald Trump had a theory. He said Barron got his height from eating only his grandmother's food. Melania's mother, Amalia Knavs, lived with the family and cooked traditional Slovenian dishes. Trump often said, "Boy, did she take care of Barron. That's how he got so tall. He only ate her food." It sounded like a sweet family story, but he repeated it so often that it became part of the public image. Amalia didn't just feed him, she helped raise him, taught him Slovenian, and even helped him get Slovenian citizenship. For Trump, her cooking wasn't just nourishing, it was the secret to Barron's towering height. Given his size, many assumed Barron would play basketball, but he didn't. He liked soccer. Trump often joked that he tried to convince Barron to pick basketball, but Barron wouldn't budge. "I said, you're gonna be a basketball player," Trump once said, and he goes, "I like soccer, Dad." Despite being taller than Michael Jordan, Barron chose a sport where being that tall can actually be a disadvantage. Still, he made it work. Observers compared him to Peter Crouch, the famously tall English striker. Barron's playing style showed real skill, even with the added challenge of his height. During his time in Washington, Barron joined the DC United Academy. It wasn't just a casual after-school activity, this was a professional-level youth program. While living at the White House, he trained seriously and played as a midfielder. Around that time, Wayne Rooney was playing for DC United. Trump invited Rooney and his wife Colleen to the White House and asked Rooney to help train Barron. That visit created a media buzz, especially when Colleen later shared an awkward story about something Trump said to Barron during the meeting. But for Barron, it was a dream come true. He was playing the sport he loved in the heart of Washington, while living in the most famous house in America. He even wore an Arsenal shirt during casual games on the White House lawn. In January 2021, everything changed for Barron Trump. He was just 14 years old when his family packed up and left the White House, trading political power for private luxury. Their new home? Mar-a-Lago, a 17-acre estate in Palm Beach. It wasn't just any property. It had 126 rooms, 33 bathrooms, 3 bomb shelters, a golf course, spa, tennis courts, and its own private beach. Donald Trump had bought it back in 1985 for $10 million. Now, it was part home, part private club with 500 members. And in the middle of it all was Barron, adjusting to a strange new world filled with politicians, socialites, and constant media noise. He also had to leave behind his old school and friends in Washington, D.C., stepping into a new chapter far from familiar halls. By August 2021, Barron was starting at a new school, Oxbridge Academy. It was a small private school with just 520 students, and it cost $34,800 a year. Located only 15 minutes from Mar-a-Lago, it fit perfectly with the Trump family's new lifestyle. The school had been founded by billionaire William Koch, whose family had deep political ties. That likely made Barron's admission easier, despite the school's strict process that asked for essays, transcripts, and teacher recommendations. At Oxbridge, students could study core subjects and languages like Spanish, French, Chinese, or even sign language. Barron, now a sophomore, had come from St. Andrews in Maryland, where tuition had been even higher, between $45,000 and $47,000 per year. This new school promised privacy and top-tier academics, but it would soon become one of the most tightly secured high schools in the country. Once Barron enrolled, the Secret Service stepped in. The school had never seen anything like it. Agents stood outside classrooms, followed him to the bathroom, and were present every day. Even the staff had to sign non-disclosure agreements. Metal detectors were installed, and surveillance increased. It wasn't just quiet protection. It changed the way the school operated. In one incident, a nearby 911 call forced a full school lockdown. Agents rushed into classrooms, confirming just how serious Barron's security situation was. Though the administration tried to make it seem normal, the constant presence of agents became part of daily life at Oxbridge. Even with all that pressure, Barron did well. He enrolled under the name Jack to keep a low profile, though everyone knew who he really was. He never ate in the cafeteria, instead waiting to go home to Mar-a-Lago for meals. Still, classmates described him as sharp and focused. He did especially well in honors science classes and could hold his own in conversations. He seemed to handle the pressure, academics, media, security, all at once. Despite everything, he built a reputation as a standout student, which later helped him get accepted into several top universities. But as he prepared for college, an unexpected storm hit. In August 2024, a social media user called Mr. Weeks, real name Dane Weeks, posted a picture claiming to show a young Barron in Central Park. He said he'd worked as a nanny for a family that knew the Trumps and that he'd seen Barron often during childhood. Then he made a shocking claim that Barron had killed 2 birds, 3 rabbits, and 1 dog. The internet exploded. One post got over 19 million views. It wasn't just about the Trumps anymore. It was a viral wildfire targeting a teenager. The most disturbing claim came shortly after. Mr. Weeks said he had seen Barron slap his nanny in Central Park. He didn't just mention it once. He repeated the story across several posts, adding more details each time. He said the incident happened after school and that he'd been there because of his work with children who attended the same school as Barron. The accusation was crude, specific, and highly inflammatory. Social media took it and ran with it. Things escalated further. Mr. Weeks claimed Barron had attacked someone with a knife more than once. He even suggested there had been investigations into Barron touching other boys inappropriately during sleepovers. According to him, Barron had flipped desks, spat on people, hit classmates, and even attacked Donald Trump during a Christmas show. The stories got darker with every post. Some people started calling it out as fake, but the damage was done. The internet had latched on, and the claims kept spreading. Soon, people began digging into Mr. Weeks himself. Who was this man claiming to have inside access to the Trump family? Online users tried to verify his background. They found no license, no daycare, no professional record, no proof that he was ever a therapist or nanny. It all started to look suspicious. Each new claim seemed wilder than the last. Without credentials or real evidence, many began to suspect that the whole story had been invented, possibly to gain attention or push a political agenda. Meanwhile, Barron had real decisions to make. Donald Trump told reporters that his son had been accepted into several colleges. He said Barron was very sought after and had very high aptitude. He even mentioned Wharton, the business school at the University of Pennsylvania, where he himself had studied. But rumors started to swirl. Online posts claimed that schools like Harvard, Stanford, and Columbia had rejected Barron. Some said no amount of Trump money could get him in. Fact checkers couldn't confirm any of it, but the gossip had taken on a life of its own. In the end, Barron chose New York University's Stern School of Business. It was a huge break from family tradition. For decades, the Trump kids had gone to Wharton or Georgetown. This time, Barron went his own way. Donald Trump admitted it was unexpected, saying, "We didn't do that. We went for Stern." The decision was surprising for another reason. Trump had been publicly criticizing New York City, calling it a city in decline. But Barron was staying in the city, ready to chart his own course. His college life wouldn't be like anyone else's. Instead of moving into a dorm, Barron stayed at Trump Tower. He would commute to NYU like a local businessman, skipping the shared dorm rooms and student lounges most freshmen know. Melania backed the decision. In a TV interview, she said, "It was his decision, and I respect that." She praised his kindness, intelligence, and independence, but admitted his life was very different from other teens. While his classmates ordered pizza in their dorms, Barron rode elevators in a golden skyscraper. There was also talk that Melania might follow him wherever he went to college. She had always kept Barron out of the public eye, protecting him fiercely. Some wondered if her influence helped shape his decision to stay in New York. If he had gone to another city, Melania might have had to move too. And that wasn't easy for a family surrounded by Secret Service agents and political tension. Staying put solved a lot of problems. It let Barron study in peace, Melania stay close, and the family avoid even more headlines. On July 9, 2024, everything changed for Barron Trump. He had just turned 18 and recently graduated high school. That night, at his father's rally at the Doral Golf Course in Florida, Donald Trump introduced his youngest son to the crowd. It was Barron's first political appearance ever. As he stood up, pumped his fist, and waved, the crowd exploded. The applause didn't stop. It became the loudest and longest standing ovation of the entire rally. Trump looked shocked. He laughed and joked that Barron might be more popular than his older brothers, Don and Eric. That single moment, captured on thousands of phones, went viral within hours. Suddenly, Barron Trump was no longer just the quiet youngest son. He was a rising figure, and people wanted to know more. Behind the scenes, something even more surprising had been happening. Barron wasn't just attending events, he was helping shape them. He became the key figure behind one of the boldest campaign strategies of 2024, the podcast playbook. According to insiders, Trump would ask, "Have you talked this over with Barron?" before appearing on any podcast. His son's approval was necessary. That strategy put Trump on shows like Joe Rogan, Logan Paul, and a live stream with Aiden Ross that hit almost 600,000 live viewers. Barron understood something most political advisors didn't. He told staff, "The joke isn't the meme. The joke is being in on the meme." He knew how Gen Z worked, and it paid off. Thanks to this approach, Trump took a 4-point lead among 18 to 34-year-old voters. A stunning 87% of young voters said they were likely to vote. For a generation that leaned left in the past, this was historic. In May 2024, the Republican Party in Florida gave Barron one of its highest honors. He was named one of 41 at-large delegates to the GOP convention in Milwaukee. His siblings, including Tiffany, Don Jr., and Eric, were also selected. This was big. Delegates are usually older and deeply involved in politics, but Barron, just weeks from high school graduation, got the nod. Then came the shock. Through his mother's office, Barron turned it down. He said he had other commitments. Commentators were stunned. This kind of offer doesn't come twice. It showed that while the party wanted him, Barron wasn't in a rush to join the spotlight, but his digital influence only grew. In March 2025, Trump told Fox News about Barron's tech skills. "I turn off his laptop. 5 minutes later, he's back on," Trump said. Some laughed at how simple the story was, but campaign staff knew there was more. Barron had a deep knowledge of social media, memes, and online trends. He helped guide content strategy, mastered TikTok rhythms, and understood how Instagram and YouTube worked better than anyone on the team. By election night 2024, Barron stood tall, literally. At 6 feet 8 inches, he towered over the crowd. But it was his strategy, not just his height, that had made a difference. The youth podcast strategy had changed the game. Trump's unfiltered voice reached hundreds of millions through long-form conversations. One podcaster said young people were tired of being lied to. Trump's real, messy talk connected. Barron also pushed for memes, short clips, and trusted micro-influencers with small but loyal followings. Exit polls confirmed the result. Trump gained huge ground with Gen Z compared to 2020. Many credited Barron for that shift. He never made a speech. He didn't post on social media, but his influence shaped everything. Still, not all headlines were about politics. In October 2024, rumors spread that Barron was dating a Czech model named Clara Jones. Several major outlets picked it up, but something was strange. There were no pictures, no event sightings, no posts. Even the few photos of Clara Jones herself were sketchy. Some people questioned if she even existed. Then, Donald Trump spoke out. In an interview with Patrick Bet-David, he said, "I don't think he's had a girlfriend yet." It was rare for Trump to talk about Barron's private life. He often bragged about Barron's height or academics, but this time, he firmly shut the door on the dating rumors. Whether it was to protect his son or because the rumors were false, the message was clear. There was one girl who did have proof of knowing Barron, a TikTok user named Maddie. She claimed they were childhood sweethearts in elementary school, and she had photos, real ones, pictures of her with young Barron, even one with Donald Trump. Maddie's story was innocent and sweet. She called Barron her first BF and bae. The internet loved it. Her videos went viral. Her follower count soared. What started as a childhood crush turned into a media storm. People were fascinated by the idea of little Maddie and little Barron being in love. It felt real, even if it belonged to the past. Then came the wildest rumor of all. Princess Leonor of Spain. The fantasy of a Trump royal match lit up social media. A viral tweet called them a match made in heaven. Supporters pointed out their age, looks, values, and powerful families. Some joked about Barron becoming king of Spain. Reddit threads and meme pages ran with it. No confirmation, no photos, not a word from either side. But the internet didn't care. It was a story too juicy to ignore. As these stories piled up, critics raised serious questions. Why was an 18-year-old who never asked for attention being dragged into romantic gossip with no proof? Experts said it crossed the line. Barron doesn't have a public Instagram. He hasn't spoken about his personal life. Yet rumors about his dating life were everywhere. Journalists were called out for ignoring basic ethics. Some reminded the public of the Murray case, where a judge ruled that fame alone doesn't justify invading a child's privacy. But in Barron's case, the media often ignored those rules. Amid all this, Trump made one last surprising comment in March 2025. In an interview, he said that Barron's future might be in technology, not politics. Even though Barron was studying business at NYU's Stern School, his real talent, according to Trump, was in tech. Trump repeated the story of Barron unlocking the laptop and said his son had an unbelievable aptitude. Barron had already helped manage high-profile podcast deals and online strategy. One live stream with YouTuber Aiden Ross reached 500,000 live viewers. Over 100 million people watched the clips afterward. That digital influence wasn't an accident. It was a skill, a vision, and it started early. Meanwhile, Barron had quietly stepped into the world of business. In July 2024, he co-founded a company called Trump, Fulcher and Roxborough Capital Inc. It was set up in Wyoming and aimed at luxury real estate. After Trump won the election, they dissolved it, but insiders say it will relaunch in 2025. The plan is to focus on high-end properties in Utah, Arizona, and Idaho. His partners want to link the company to the Trump Organization. Even while studying, Barron is already being pulled toward the family empire.